Hey guys, another weekend has come and gone, and it is time to continue with our stage two. Hope your weekends were great. I appreciate the questions that you guys have been sending, and anything I can do for you, please let me know. So far, you have created an end of unit test. You've looked at formative assessments, so you know if your teaching is working. And again, you've created a test which is just assessing the knowledge level to where students are at. I had some good questions about that. Is teaching to the test bad? And I would say that teaching to the test is the very basics. It's okay to do, but if that's all that you do, you're missing the point of teaching. In other words, teaching to the test gets to the very floor of the standards. When you really teach standards, you take the content past the standards. So if you're ever in a classroom and a teacher says, well, I've taught that standard, then they're putting the standards as the ceiling, like the pinnacle. And I would suggest that teaching the standard is the floor, and your job is to take the standards much higher than what they were ever intended to do. If that doesn't make sense, I'll try to clarify a little bit later. This is how we're going to construct a performance task. I want you to think about this. My son was on the worst basketball team you could ever imagine. He's 8 years old, and I would rather go get a tooth pulled at the dentist instead of go watch these games. They would, in practice, pretend like the other team was going to stand still, and they would come up with these plays that were supposedly going to work. And then, when they did not work in the games, they had no idea what to do. This is exactly what we do in schools, even at the college level. My students want a study guide with word for word questions, with fill in the blanks, with word boxes, and they want the questions on the test to be exactly the same as what was on the study guide. What am I teaching? And what are they learning if that's all that I do? They're just taking it to memorization, and they're just taking it to the knowledge level. Now, we're going to go into this a little bit later, so just hold on to that, the difference between knowledge and understanding. I want to suggest that our goal as teachers is to teach the content and then have at least one assessment that the content is portrayed and given to the students a little differently than the way you taught it. Good basketball teams practice and practice and practice, and they come up with every scenario they can. However, in the game, if the other team is doing something different, they have an understanding of the game well enough to where they can manipulate the game to fit them. We can't just teach our content like it's going to be learned for a test. We have to teach content, and we have to teach it in a way so students know that it's going to be used in the real world. And if you look at your content and you can't figure out where it's at in the real world, why are you teaching it? If you're in math, this can be a little difficult at times because sometimes one skill just leads to another, and then that skill leads to something in life. But it's your job as a teacher to figure that out. So to do this, we're going to use this acronym of GRASPs. These each stand for a sentence that we're going to use to create our performance task or performance assessment. So we want to give the students a real world goal. We want to give them a role. We want to give them an audience. We have to get it out of the four walls of our classroom if we really want this to be good. If all the students ever do is create projects for you as the teacher to see, then the work is never going to be their best. But when they know there's a real audience that's getting ready to see their work, it will amp up the engagement and motivation for them to do better. You need to figure out a real world situation that the content they are learning is in, and then we need to make them produce something or perform something that is going to help them in the real world. And finally, if you remember, we need to figure out what standards these are. I want to be very clear right now. This performance task will only have 1 to 4 or 5 standards that it's assessing. Remember those 3 concentric circles where one of them was the students just need to be familiar with this. It's not that important. The next circle was students need to be able to know and do. And the last circle was this is an enduring understanding. Okay? I want you now to look at the standards in your unit and pick out the 1 to 4 standards that you feel are the heart of your unit, that students really have to know this. And these are the standards we're going to create a performance task for. When you come down, you're going to see the sentence stems. Now, you just have to fill out one for each one. So when we look at the grasps, the first one was to give your students a goal. Okay? What you're going to do is you're going to fill in one of these sentences, whichever one you like the best. Your task is, your goal is to, the problem or challenge is, the obstacle to overcome is. And this is just a graphic organizer to help you get an idea of what your performance task is going to look like. Then a role. One of the levels of understanding is one of perspective or empathy. If you really want students to understand something, then they have to see things from somebody else's point of view. So when you give them a role, put them in the role of a real life person or occupation that is actually using the skills that you are teaching in the class. Give the students an audience. This could be a fake audience. It could be a real audience. Maybe you're going to invite parents to come in and watch performances. Maybe they're going to mail letters to a senator. Maybe they're going to mail letters to a military person. There's lots of things that you can do, but try to give the students an audience. And if you can't think of an audience, then give them a fake audience so at least they can see the importance of the task. Finally, what's the situation? The context you find yourself in is, or the challenge involves dealing with, and then you can finish that out. Finally, the product, performance, and purpose. You will create you will develop, so you're just thinking about what your end product is going to be with this performance task. Now, all of these performance tasks down here, where it says standards and criteria for success, you can list the standards that you're using for this performance task, and then you are actually, in the next portion of this week, you're going to create a rubric for your performance task. So your performance task is going to, the rough draft is going to be a 5 or 6 sentence little thing that just has the goal, role, audience, situation, and then you need to beef it up. They're going to end up, and I'll put these online for you to see. This is called a fractured fable assignment. This is one that a student did who was doing one with 4th grade literature. And she said, Walt Disney has asked for help. He has come to a writer's block and needs you to come up with a fresh new Disney favorite. Okay? He has heard of the work you've been doing with fractured fables in class and thinks it's a perfect idea for his new film. He has sent some of the people's favorite classic tales and needs you to come up with the next Grammy nominee. You have been put into your own play crew and will each be given a copy of a classic. You are to take the piece and, using the knowledge you've acquired while learning about fractured fables, make your very own. Each of you will have a specific job to help create your final product, which will be performed on the red carpet in front of all your loved ones and Walt Disney himself. Many things go into creating a play, including set designer, costume designer, playwright, and director. Your play must be written in the correct format, include everyone in your group, and as a group you must come up with a moral to go along with your new fable. Be creative and break a leg. So using that grasp sheet that I just showed you before, this is the beefed up final version where she is handing this directly to her students, and you can see how fun and exciting this would be for students to do as opposed to just write an article or create an essay. Another one that you already saw the first portion of, this was a high school biology, and in this one the performance task was McGraw-Hill, the textbook company, has been looking for ways to create the new book, and his students are going to create this nonfiction text that goes over the things that they just learned. So they're going to create a book about all of the science terms and things that they've done, and I'll upload this. This is just a couple samples of performance tasks. This is taking the learning from beyond teaching to the test to creating something that is real world, that is going to make the students so much more engaged and motivated, and it's going to get them to the next level. So this is your assignment for the first part of this week. Create a performance task. with the same unit you've been working with your formative assessments, and that you already created your end of unit test